Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you all here in Mumbai. And it's a great honor for me to be here to represent my organization, Mercy Corps, a global organization, a team of 5,500 people working in 41 countries around the world, many of which are the most fragile and challenging environments on the planet. And what a time for me to be here with you. What a time when there are over 66 million people displaced globally, over 141 million people in need of humanitarian assistance as I stand here and speak in front of you. And, importantly, according to the World Bank, over 1.5 billion people living amidst conflict, violence, and fragility. 1.5 billion people. So it is an extraordinary time, and it's never been more important for my organization and the many, many other extraordinary humanitarian organizations around the world to be doing this work. And importantly, not to be doing this work within a short-term or siloed framework, but to be doing this work with a long-term perspective. So my organization, Mercy Corps, we like our threes, and we frame the addressing of these root causes of all that fragility around 3 Gs. The first G is grievances, and it's never been more important to be addressing those grievances, the current ones and those historical ones that go back over generations. So let me give you an example of this first G, grievances. We're working in many pastoralist and agro-pastoralist populations and geographies around the world, particularly in the Horn and the Sahel in Africa, to build and strengthen relationships between those pastoralist livelihood systems and farmers and agriculturalists, to address injustices and historical grievances, to show the viability of pastoral livelihood systems, and to build strong, productive social cohesion. Another example, the displacement around the Syria crisis, over 11 million people displaced. We are working in countries such as Jordan and Lebanon and Iraq, those neighboring countries to Syria, to promote strong social cohesion and to address grievances between different populations. So that's the first G. The second one, governance. My organization is working in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo, a place where I've spent many, many years of my life. DR Congo currently has 3.6 million people displaced. And let's remember, many of that displacement started over 24 years ago around the Rwanda genocide. We're putting in a clean water and sanitation system in 2 urban areas on the border with Rwanda to create access to clean water and sanitation for over 1 million people. And that's hugely important when you think of many of those 1 million people are women, boys, and girls. But frankly, almost the easiest part, although it is complex, is to get the pipes in the ground. The important part is to build a strong, lasting, and robust governance system so that those women, children, boys and girls have access to sustainable water and sanitation services for the long term. And to do that, you need a viable and strong governance system. So that's the second G. And then the third one, growth. Weak economic growth, disparities, that inequity of opportunity that we all know about, that is fueling so much of that violence and fragility and displacement that we're gathered here to discuss today. So we must find ways to push out those opportunities into those more fragile and marginalized parts of the world. I said there are 3 Gs, but first and foremost in my mind this evening is the G of Gaza, where my organization is working to support young people with technology and entrepreneurial ecosystems, supporting startups. Gaza, West Bank and Gaza, the occupied Palestinian territories, the extraordinary challenges, the heightened tensions at the moment because of recent developments in the news. And yet still, we must and we are finding ways to create access to that economic opportunity in those places. Another example, northeast Nigeria, over 2.4 million people displaced in that area bordering Chad and over the border into Cameroon because of the horrors of the activities of Boko Haram. and because of challenges around governance. But if we can catalyze, and we are, through partnerships with the private sector, with some of our long-standing institutional donor partnerships, if we can push out that opportunity, and as I say, we are, to those fragile places to create access to economic growth, equitable, equally distributed economic growth in fragile places like Northeast Nigeria, we are making the world a better place. So those are the 3 Gs that I would be delighted if you could all take home with you today. And then how are we doing this? My organization, we pride ourselves on our culture. We're not always the most slick around our systems. We're an extremely decentralized organization with 90% of our team members coming from the countries where we work, those 41 countries around the world. And central to our culture, which I think is actually a guiding rule for life and something that I think that Mother Teresa herself would have liked, is this curiosity, urgency, and joy. Curiosity, because frankly, the world is a complex place, as we all know. We don't have all the answers to the problems that we are dealing with. We don't know how to seize all those opportunities in the most fragile places. We're doing extraordinary things. We reached over 21 million people last year. That's Mercy Corps alone. But we don't have all the solutions. So we must be curious. We must be restless. We must focus on innovation and trying new things, new ways of working, new collaborations, new partnerships, especially in this increasingly multipolar world that we live in today. So new partnerships with countries like India and many, many others. We must be curious around how to find solutions to some of the challenges we're dealing with around the world. So that's the first one, curiosity. Secondly, urgency. Need I say any more? I've given you the statistics. It is urgent, ladies and gentlemen, that we align, we unite, and we work together to make this world a more secure, productive, and just environment. And then the last one, my last point, is we must do this with joy. I am extraordinarily privileged in my job as our executive director to travel around the world, to have opportunities to speak to wonderful people like you, and to spend time in many, many remote, rural, and sometimes highly fragile environments around the world. And I do it with a great joy, because I think of the world I'm building for my 9-year-old daughter and my 6-year-old son, and the wonderful, wonderful team members around the Mercy Corps world. And I do it with a passion and a joy. And I hope that resonates with you all this evening, because it is a complex time. We are going through a volatile period in our history, and we have to harness together that joy so that we can make this world a better place. So thank you so much for letting me speak with you this evening. It's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
We just heard